Hello everyone, welcome to another Josekis lesson. This lesson is the first of a few videos on how to approach the corner enclosure, this small nice enclosure, starting from the start point. In all the variations we're going to study, white will go first to challenge black's corner enclosure. One note on the pedagogy before we begin. Before this video, I've always shown all these stones as if it were a real game, right? Black can approach and white will answer. But I'm not using that in this series of videos. Why? Because if black plays here at number 5, white's best move is not to approach this corner enclosure. White's best move is to play on these 3 other corners. White, of course, can play the corner enclosure. This small nice enclosure, by the way, is considered the best type of enclosure for you to play. And of course, white can challenge black on this other open corner as well. It is not advised for white to try to challenge the corner enclosure right away. And that is why it does not make sense for us to look at number 6 in the context of the whole board. So that's why it makes more sense to just look at this corner enclosure separately and see what white can do. As an introduction, I want to tell you all the moves that are viable. Of course, they have different degrees of viability, if you will. Some moves are more efficient than others. Other moves are less good, and they might be a little situational. And because I also want to cater to beginners, there are certain moves that I'm showing that will almost never be played. After that, I will show you what we're all curious about as beginners, and that is the 3-3 invasion. What happens when we play the 3-3 invasion? Spoiler alert, it is not the best move for white to challenge black's corner enclosure in this situation, and we'll see what will happen if white does play at the 3-3 point. So first things first, the viable options. One is, of course, if you see a corner enclosure this way, it's going to be the left side. So the shoulder hit at A will be a viable move, right? If white wants to emphasize the left side, or sometimes B right here, this attachment. If you want to get something going on the left side, that's how you might want to play. But mostly A. And another direction, of course, is from the upper side. And that's why you have this approach at B. It is a viable move. Not very often played before AI, I would say, but it is definitely something that AI would do. It's just to play an approach, and it is the equivalent of taking sente. After playing the approach, black answers, and then white takes sente, right? It's the equivalent of that. And then what do we have? We have the 2-5 point at C. This is considered the best way, actually, to contest black's corner. Here on the second line. And there is the 2-4 point, right, at D, another viable way for white to contest black's corner. These 4 are the best moves. And there are some less viable moves. One is this attachment underneath at E. Not as good in this situation for white. And of course, there is F. Not good either. And I would say it is situational. It really depends what else is happening elsewhere on the board, especially this upper left quadrant. And these are all really the viable moves, and we'll look at them and explain them one by one. Maybe we can get A out of the way in this video as well, right? If you play the shoulder hit, then it depends on what's happening on the left side, but the goal of this shoulder hit normally is to try to reduce black's influence on the left side, because this stone right here, this enclosing stone, is on the 3rd line, right? It's relatively low, so white will play something like this to keep black low. Or if black wants to crawl here, another viable move, this is how it's going to go. Pretty simple, but it really depends on what's going on here on the left side. And of course, this attachment also exists. This is where white kind of wants to settle on the left side. And if black plays something like this, this also works, of course. This means white wants to, again, build on the left side and prevent black from keep building territory on the left side on the third line. Right. So all of these are viable moves. Of course, here's this, but this is not really putting any pressure on the corner enclosure itself. So I would not have to explain this, right, as part of our Josekis series. This is just part of the game. And what about the other side? So normally you do not try these moves, right? For beginners, these are all mii, right? If you play this, your opponent is going to play the other. It is not going to work. But it is a co-threat, right? If there's a co-threat elsewhere on the board, your opponent has to play the co-threat somewhere, and then you cut off these two stones like this. This is a good way for white to play a co, right? To follow through with a co-threat. But otherwise, you almost never play this out of the blue, right? Moves like this doesn't work, right? Because once black gets to the 3-3 point, it's very hard for white to maneuver. There's another move right here. This is kind of situational. It could be an endgame move. We have a setup like this. Say white is fairly strong on the outside, and white might be able to get to number 9 right here. And if black wants to end this peacefully, then of course white will be able to connect back and gain some territory and reduce black's territory on the corner. Black will still be alive this way. But if black wants to prevent white from going back, then white can get to the 3-3 point. It is going to be a dead shape, but black, if surrounded by white on the outside like this, will eventually have to play through a race to capture white. So it will be a lot of trouble for black to kill white on the inside. And white will get to play many free moves on the outside. So that's the idea for number 9. It is situational, not when there are only 2 black stones here. This doesn't really work, right? All you can do is crawl on the second lines here, and it's not worth it. So these are the wrong moves. What else, right? This never works for beginners. You're just bumping against the wall. That's why playing here works. Playing here, of course, is also challenging black's grip on the corner. And of course, black will most likely want to kick, right? You want to kick white out of the corner, prevent white from coming into the corner, and then you play a pincer to put pressure on these white stones. We might come back to that and explain a little more. So the 2-5, 2-4, these are more complicated, and the attachment underneath, not played that often. So I'll show you in the next couple of videos, because black can actually just allow white to live on the inside, and it's actually not great for white because the wall is very solid and the corner is not big enough. And this echoes the theme that I emphasized in my previous video, and that is black has the flexibility of exchanging the corner territory for very nice influence on the outside. And this is one example of how black can do that. And this favors black, even though white has occupied the corner territory. And what we're most curious about, of course, should be this 3-3 invasion. And the small knight's enclosure is the only occasion where it'll be very, very difficult for white to make a wing shape. Or you can remember it as it's not very possible for white to make a living shape. Whereas these other corner enclosures, like the one space jump or the large knight's move, will allow the opponent to come into the 3-3 point and live rather comfortably. Right? So what's happening here is that after these exchanges, the best white can do is number 7 right here, this tiger's mouth. This will be a ko, right? And this is how black can trigger it. If black doesn't play the ko, then of course white can live this way. 2 real eyes, one here, one on the corner, and if white gets to capture back and black connects here, then what white can do is to extend its eye space. And this way, white is still alive, right? This is a connectant eye. So this will be 2 real eyes for white. This is how white can potentially live, but it must play through the code. White cannot connect here, right? White connects here, then after this, white doesn't have enough eye space. Or if it's something like this, again, white does not have enough eye space. So white must play through the code in order to win. Can black kill white? Not really, right? You all move here, white will stay alive. Or if it's something like this, again, white will be able to make 2 real eyes. If black comes in this way, again, white should increase its own eye space. And this is going to be enough eye space to make 2 real eyes. So that's the life and death that you should know. Even beginners should try to understand what's going on here, the life and death implications of this white's invasion. So it is a code, but there are variations where white can connect here. And of course, this shape is a dead shape for white, right? After this, number 13 and 14 are knee eye, right? White gets to one point, black will occupy the other, and white will be dead. But after having guaranteed 1 real eye here, white can climb here and get out. Black cannot stand down. First of all, number 13, Sente, is threatening this cut at 14. And now white can live, right? Because of number 13's help. And of course, in this situation, white can also cut. And this will be trouble for black. Black will be killed this way or this way. So black cannot stand down. So this clamping actually works. White will get to escape here, but it'll be on the second line. It'll be something like this, and it's really not worth it because the territory here is simply too small. And black's wall on the outside is very strong. So it is not worth it for white to live this way. Unless, of course, if there's already a white stone here somewhere, and if it's much easier, right, for white to connect out, then this is fine. But most likely this stone will have to be on the third line somewhere. So that is situational, right, with this connection and a clamp. But what if black doesn't want white to clamp? Even this, I think, favors black, because black has a very nice wall on the outside, black has Sente, and the corner territory is very limited. So again, I think even though black played an enclosure, black is still happy to give white the corner this way and take Sente, have a very nice wall on the outside, and play elsewhere. Note that this cutting point does not exist. Black does not capture this cut by using the ladder. Black can play the net here. Right? This is going to be a net, and white cannot escape. Right? There's no way for number 13 to escape after this net at number 14. Are there other moves? Of course, white can play something similar, right? You can trigger the code this way as well. But most likely, you will crawl here first and trigger the code. What if white doesn't want to crawl? White also has this move. So what's the life and death situation here? If black plays on the left side, then white will need to increase its eye space and play for a code this way. Right? If you connect here, then this is not enough eye space to live. This is simply too small. If you connect this way, again, this is not going to be enough, but of course, white will still have this clamping move and might be able to escape on the second line. Again, if there are no white stones on the upper side helping this group, it's not really worth it for white to save the corner at all. So that's another way to get to a ko, actually, right? 1, 3, 5, and 7, and 9. This is another ko. And black can also play on the corner, right? This is going for the kill. But if white has reinforcement on the left side, then white has this move. This way, white will escape. If black tries to enclose white this way, then there's a cutting point on the outside. That could be a problem, especially if there are reinforcements for white on the left side, right? This cut is a potential problem, right? Of course, they're pushing and cutting, and white has 5 liberties left, and black could be in a tough fight if there are other stones for white on the left side. So black might as well allow white to live here, right? Again, this is going to be a living shape of straight 4, no problem. But again, I think this will favor black because this is only for 5 points for white. But black gets really nice influence on the outside. So even if, right, the conclusion is even if black allows white to live on a corner, black gets a really nice wall on the outside. So we're already seeing the theme I was alluding to in the previous video, and that is black is actually very happy to exchange a corner territory for outside influence, if that exchange is viable. And there are many ways where that exchange is favorable for black if white plays the 3-3 invasion. That is why it is not advised for whites to play the 3-3 invasion. The last thing to note for beginners is that you always block from this side. That's number 2, right? You never block from this side, because if you block from this side, then this move, this enclosing move at c14 is completely wasted. It's so redundant, right? And white will be able to occupy the corner very comfortably, and this stone will be very, very redundant. And that is why 99% of the time you have to block from this way and lead white to this enclosing stone, waiting, right, to enclose white in the corner. So this direction, you have to get it right. I've seen some beginners, some double-digit Q players get this wrong, and you cannot get this wrong. 99% of the time, or 100% of the time, it has to be this block from the other side, pushing your opponent's stone to the enclosing stone. That's the last note. Hope you enjoyed this video, and in the next few videos we'll talk about these other moves, right? This attachment underneath, why this is not a good move. This 2-5 point, remember this is one of the best moves there is. There's also the 2-4 point, which can also be an effective move. Thank you for watching.